Maybe you heard today that Obama's poll numbers are in the tank. 37% approval, which means 63% either don't approve, don't care, don't like, or whatever. The American people don't like Obamacare. The American people have even said they don't want the government controlling their health care. The Democrats are running like rats, jumping ship like the Titanic. And Republicans are giddy. Have you noticed? Oh, yeah. On TV, on radio. Yeah, this is good. We got them right where we want them. We got them right where we want them. Now, I'm glad. I'm glad the tide is turning. I don't know for how long, but it's important. But it's not turning because the Republicans did some great job of informing the American people or any of that. It's turning because the outrageous consequences of big government utopianism are bleeding the country, bleeding the people. That's what's happening. People are directly feeling the pain, the anxiety, the frustration. And it'll only get worse. It's going to get worse. And I'm not just talking about health care. I'm talking about wait till the bottom falls out on the debt. You know, you can repeal Obamacare. You cannot repeal the debt. And when that thing starts to spiral out of control, I don't mean building up the debt, but I mean taking down the economy and then taking down the society. That you can't fix. It takes its own course. So now the Republicans are giddy. They said, just step back, let it implode. Now, folks, this is absurd. Let it implode. Well, yes, but it's not going to go away unless somebody does something about it. And I've been talking about this. What are we going to do about this? I'm not talking about, hey, we need an alternative. I'm talking about, how do we get rid of this? What's the mechanism? And there's a piece by the always good Daniel Horowitz at Red State, who works with the Madison Project, which kind of sums it up. And certainly sums it up for me, as we've been talking about on this program. He says there are two clear observations about Obamacare at this point. It cannot be fixed, and it will not collapse on its own. That's exactly right. And when you look at the broader picture, it's expanding while it's imploding, a phrase that I use often. As we are now seeing from the canceled insurance plans, the industry has been working on revamping the insurance market for 3 years. Obamacare has already collapsed the health care system. It can only be rebuilt by completely repealing the law. A point I've also made. The health care system is gone. There are, yes, little pockets operating in the breach and so forth, but the market system is gone. He says the law won't go away by itself. They will fix the website one day, and the mandates and regulations on insurance will continue to force people into dependency on subsidies and Medicaid expansion. Worse, on the actual health care side of the equation, scores of doctors are going to leave the field of medicine due to the onerous burdens that go well beyond the insurance regulations. And yes, in some sense, you can refer to this as a collapse of the system, but it's exactly what Obamacare was designed to do with its inexorable path towards single payer. It's collapsing the system intentionally. It has to. So the market system, the competitive system, dead. He says we can't afford to wait until the website is fixed and the dependency takes root. It's tempting for Republicans to just sit back and enjoy the polling data, but polling data will not get rid of this law. Polls are not elections, and even 2014 won't save us. In the best case scenario, We will have 51 seats in the Senate, even 52 or 53, let's pretend, with a unified filibuster-strong Democrat minority that, when coupled with the wayward Republicans, will give Harry Reid a de facto majority on this issue. And Obama will still be president. Waiting until 2017 is simply unacceptable. And folks, it's unacceptable for a myriad of reasons, including the fact that a lot of people are going to be harmed by this in miserable ways. And the system is being rebuilt not as a market system, but as an authoritarian, iron-fisted system. They're digging in. In a sane world, Republicans would utilize this time to force the issue on Obamacare using our leverage points, not just to talk about it or help Democrats, quote-unquote, fix it. One challenge conservatives had with making Obamacare the centerpiece of the October budget showdown, aside from Senate Republicans sabotaging the effort, was that Republicans failed to prep the ground for the fight over the past few years. In fact, thanks to Mitt Romney, Obamacare was not part of the political discourse for an entire 2 years. But that's all changed over the past month. While we were stymied by fellow Republicans during the actual showdown, we did succeed at restarting the national discussion on Obamacare. I would amend that. I don't think we succeeded at starting the national discussion on Obamacare. The people did, because the people are actually feeling the brunt of this now, and even those who aren't see it coming. So the national discussion has started in earnest with the people. For the first time in Obama's presidency, even some of the low-information voters, or as I call them, drones, have finally realized the failure of Obama and his signature legislation. And we now know that the shutdown polling was off base and superficial. And it makes no sense why Obamacare should not be part of the budget discussions, the upcoming budget discussions. Most people have forgotten or don't know that the budget impasse was not resolved last month. The new budget deadline is January 15, and the new debt ceiling deadline is February 7. There's more news on that February 7 deadline that I'll get to later. The deadline for reaching a budget conference deal is just 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. Here's the irony, folks. Cruz, Lee, Rubio, the rest of them. Boehner, yes, even though he was forced into it. They were right. They've been right. They were right all along. There are only certain leverage points that you have. And for Congress, it's the budget and it's the debt ceiling. That's it. The power of the purse to drive changes or the abolition of Obamacare. And the point I made several weeks ago is, why did they pass a phony bill that was going nowhere in the Senate to, quote-unquote, allow insurance companies to keep the insurance that you have? Now is the time to be passing a repeal bill, because the public's with you. Not because of your genius, Republicans, but in spite of your failure to make the case. So what Daniel Horowitz is saying, and what I'm saying is, you're actually going to have a second bite at this apple. Now bite it, damn it. But he says, alas, we have no leverage. Because Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, and I will now add, House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan, have made it clear they will never fight any budget or debt ceiling. They have completely echoed the scandalous Democrat talking points about default. In fact, they've publicly declared that they will lash out at conservatives who try to fight Obamacare and prevent endless increases or suspensions of the debt ceiling. So the Republican leaders, Ryan, who's in charge of the budget process in the House, which is crucial, and McConnell, who's running scared, busy attacking conservatives and so forth, they have done Obama's work for him. And they have said there will be no shutdown, which means there will be no serious fight because they have no leverage. None. And so they have no leverage over the budget. What kind of leverage will they have over Obamacare? What does Mitch McConnell, what does Paul Ryan propose to do now about Obamacare? They propose to do nothing. This is my point. We can be as giddy as we want. The nation can turn against Obama. The nation can turn against the Democrats. We can take a majority in the Senate. And we are not going to stop Obamacare unless we use the power of the purse yet again. So he points out, even with Obama's approval rating sinking into the 30s, and Obamacare is toxic as ever, Democrats have no reason to fear the budget deadlines next year. The only points of contention are locking in the sequester cuts that were already locked in and extending super long-term unemployment benefits for yet another year. But when it comes to fighting Obamacare, it's all hat and no cattle. So Daniel Horowitz over at Red State, he says, okay, conservatives should push for at least 2 concessions. At least 2 concessions if we're going to have any chance. I'll explain them when I return.
Mark Levin.
What's the plan, folks? We know what a disaster Obamacare is. We know the American people can't stand it. The independents are turning on Obama. The Democrats are running scared as more and more of their constituents are losing their health care coverage. It's a disaster on every level. It's only going to get worse. Millions and millions of people are going to be affected directly once this 1-year delay is lifted on larger businesses. Medicare patients, they're going to lose Medicare Advantage, and you're also going to lose your doctors. Meanwhile, the Medicaid budget is going to explode. It's now 25% of every state's budget, heading to 30%. So taxes are going to go up, deficits are going to go up, the quality of health care is going to go down, longer lines, longer waiting periods, less doctors, less facilities. And yet, it does not disappear on its own, folks. So the question is, I'm serious, this is the question that needs to be asked Mitch McConnell. This is the question that needs to be asked Boehner. This is the question that needs to be asked every Republican in office, all their cheerleaders. That's the question that should be asked Chris Christie and Kasich and Scott Walker. All of them. What is your plan to eliminate Obamacare? Yes, we will have our own ideas for rebuilding the free market system, but first, you can't do that while this monstrosity is sitting there. And the answer is they have no plan. None. Elect more Republicans. Are they going to elect a Republican filibuster-proof Senate? No. Is Obama going to sign what they do? Weren't they arguing just a few months ago that it's a fool's errand because Obama's president and he's not going to sign such a bill? What are they going to do? They have no plan, folks. This is the disaster. I'm not looking at the superficial. I'm not chasing the polls. I'm not looking at the politics right now. I'm looking at the facts. The facts. Daniel Horowitz at Red State. He says the conservatives need to push for at least 2 concessions. First, even if they already surrendered the budget battle, and McConnell and Paul Ryan have announced their surrender, These are generals who Lincoln would have fired during the Civil War. They're so preposterous. And that explains, Mr. Producer, while the Ryan staff contacted you to have him speak to me, he never called me. Because I suspect what he wanted to tell me, he knew I wasn't going to support. So even if they already surrendered the budget battle, writes Horowitz, they must secure an agreement from the Democrats to pass all of next year's 12 appropriation bills in regular order. See, that's what you used to do. Not these omnibus bills, not these continuing resolutions. One appropriation bill at a time. In regular order. And go to conference on each bill individually. In other words, meet with the House Republicans and have your conference on each bill, which is a majority vote when it comes out of there. He says this will lay the groundwork for fighting Obamacare in one or two bills without having the rest of the federal government as collateral damage in a shutdown. Makes sense? So you're fighting over one or two of 12 appropriation bills, not the entire funding of the federal government. Number two, Republicans always said they wouldn't mind fighting just the debt ceiling because there's no direct government shutdown. Now's the time to start debunking the myth of default and committing to ending this practice of suspending the debt ceiling law. The debt ceiling fight is an important fight. But the problem is, folks, even Boehner and McConnell, they sound like Obama. They sound like the liberals. They sound like the Wall Street Journal editorial page and the other crony capitalists and corporatists. Oh, we're going to default. Oh, we're going to default. When we cannot default as a matter of fact. Not this way anyway. I'll be right back.